My name is Councillor Duncan McGregor. I am a resident of Cresswell and have been for nigh on 60 years. My family actually come from Scotland. My dad came from Scotland, who worked at a colliery in Scotland, to work at Cresswell Colliery, and that's eventually the family followed down, and that's how we came to live in Cresswell. From that, it was some years obviously before I was a councillor. I was a councillor, made a councillor when I was 25 years old. And that came about by accident really. But one day my children were playing with the other children on the street, and a neighbour phoned up to say they're kicking the ball on my garden. I went out to take the ball off my children and there were nowhere for them to play. There was about 20 kids on the street at that time. Suddenly this little police car came up, just out of a heartbeat, and this young policeman came out. I'll never forget. I'm holding the ball under my arm, telling the kids, look, you'll have to go away because Mr., I'll not mention his name, has been complaining about you going on his garden fetching the ball. So the policeman came and looked at me and said, you should have known better. And I tried to explain to him I wasn't playing football, I was trying to prevent it. Nevertheless, I got a warning off him, must stop it or else you'll be in trouble, which annoyed me immensely because he didn't want to listen. Anyway, approximately 3 weeks later, as I worked at Cresswell Colliery then, I was on going on the afternoon shift with a friend of mine, and outside what was which is now classed as the social centre, there was a notice of election for a councillor to represent the community. So I gave my snap to my colleague and said, I'm going on the bus, I'm going up to Clown and I'll do that job and try and get some play areas for the children of the community. I did do that, and I was informed by there were certain things you have to do to be a councillor, sign all this, sign that. And I said, well, no, it doesn't matter then. And they said, well, you have to be elected. Now that's how ignorant I really was, even at 25 years old. I wasn't interested in politics as such. But the clerk of the council did actually say, help me, which he did. We filled the forms in. Anyway, election was held on at that day, and them days, it was Saturday morning when the elections were, not like Thursdays like they are now. And I won the election, much to my surprise. A complete loss, because I didn't know what to do, but I did eventually join Clown Rural District Council, as it was then, which represented the community of Cresswell, Clown, Whitwell and Balborough, which was some 18,000 residents at that time. And so from there I got then addicted to politics because I could see how it affected the communities. And when I say addict, I meant to try to represent what the community I felt needed. So I was always very much impressed in trying to increase leisure facilities for a community. Well, Cresswell actually came about as a satellite of Elmton. Elmton actually was a very old village, which is only just a mile and a half up the street, and that's why we called Elmton with Cresswell Parish Council, because Elmton is the original village. Where Cresswell is built was basically agriculture. But the reason Cresswell came about was because there was a company called the Bolsover Colliery Company, who sank collieries at Cresswell, Bolsover, and I think it was at Welbeck, but certainly they were involved in more than Cresswell. That was around about 1900s when Cresswell Colliery was sunk, and that started to grow from then. The main street of Cresswell was down on Sheffield Road, where there were some cottages, which was basically to do with it from the agricultural aspect and that. In fact, we had a stagecoach place down there on Sheffield Road. So Cresswell didn't exist as such till the colliery was started producing coal. So the miners came, and consequently we had a unique development called the Model Village, which at that time was a unique architectural focus, because the similar one was done by this, a company at Bolsover. Although there's a square, we're the only one that got one in a circular fashion. So that was quite unique, and that's why it was called the Model Village. And that was the main source of people living who were living in the village who worked at the colliery. And from there, that is where we started to grow. Cresswell Colliery employed, when I first started at the colliery, approximately 1,400 men. I started at Cresswell Colliery when I was 15 years old, because that was when you left school at that stage. My first job was to be trained, and the coal board at that time used to send us off to get trained, health and safety, and to understand what the mining fraternity had to do and how the work was carried out. I did start at Cresswell Colliery in the lamp room, and that was repairing the miners' lamps, the gas lamps, and the headlamps, etc. I enjoyed that. It was a really good job, and you used to get to know people. And the very good thing about that was that the person who used to check people off, he knew every single person's number. He didn't say Bill Joe, it was number, and he checked him off. It was good. I was really impressed by that, and that learnt me something in life from an education point of view, that it doesn't have to rely on memory all the time. You can consistency of doing something can improve your ability to be educated. He was very educated in listening to all them check numbers coming through on them shift patterns. But Cresswell Colliery, it did have major events at Cresswell Colliery. Basically, we had a major disaster in 1950 where we lost 80 souls that night. But that's recorded and fully indexed in all the reports, etc., regarding that major problem. I worked on the face when I got to 18 years old, as many of us did, and we always wanted to be working on the face because that's where the money was. The eventual problems that happened within the coal industry continued when the government started to look towards closing the colliery under the pretext, as far as some of us thought about, was to do with the energy and the environment. But nevertheless, a colliery closure started, and the manpower started to decrease eventually. It went down to 700, then it went lower than that. There was great concerns within the community as to what would happen. And being a politician and being part of the council then, my view was to look towards the future, to see, well, if the colliery was to close, which seemed very possible at that time, what would we replace it? Because it was the centre point for the community. It controlled everything. The economy of the village was centred around the miners' wage packet. The shops, the whole economy was based on this. The leisure aspect, which consisted of football, cricket, bowls, tennis, all these leisure attributes were all, again, centred around the colliery. So when the colliery closed, it was a major effect. Not only was it the leisure aspect that was destroyed, but the jobs was destroyed. And the problem was there were nothing to replace it. They said you could move to other collieries. Well, some people did. Some people took redundancy because they felt that they didn't want to go further afield because they've always used to working at Cresswell Colliery and didn't want to go anywhere else. But they did have that choice. But the worst thing was the morale of the community, because it was a very, very good community, very close-knitted, because everybody knew everybody, and it was. And that had the closure had a devastating effect on the community at large. along with other mining communities throughout the country. And it's indescribable until you were part of that process to understand the severity of what that closure meant to Cresswell as a community. What we have to do is pick ourselves up, which we have done to a great extent, and to move on. What's happened's happened, and we have to live for the future. And we still have families here with children, and we still have a lot of people that's still embodied within the community. Before the colliery closed, there was 6,000 population at this village, so there was a dramatic fall during that period. Lots of shops closed, etc. So through the local authorities, we had to find ways forward of trying to create jobs and improve the lives of the communities. And to do that, you needed resources, i.e. money. So we had to go out and find and research where we could get funds to do the things that we want to do. And I'm pleased to say, through the parish council at Cresswell, for example, over the last 5 years, despite even before that, they've accrued over £1 million in grants towards the leisure facilities, which has brought cricket back, improved football conditions, the bowling, etc. And that was part of our heritage. So that was one good thing that the local council is continues to strive to improve on, and I'm sure it will. In respect of employment, some of the sites on Cresswell Colliery has now been turned into little business units. They're insufficient to catch up with a lot of employment, but it's a start. Growth is the key to any community, because one thing I was concerned about was schools. Now, schools needed bums on seats, basically, so you needed the children. We've got 2 schools in Cresswell, the Cresswell Junior School and Cresswell Infant School. We did have a senior school previously, but that was engulfed into a larger school at Clown. So that's the senior one. New development in Cresswell. We've got a lot of plans now. There's on Skinner Street in Cresswell, there is a planning application in for 280 new properties, and that's going through the process. On the colliery site itself, there was a previous application approved about 10 years ago actually, for 190, and there's a new application just come in recent weeks to add to that to make it up to about 270. We've reconstructed the old schools, the old senior schools on Elkton Road. They were left vacant and demoralised for a great number of years when the school moved. They were then refunded, and they're now living accommodation in there. So we're trying to get the street scene improved as time goes by. We're embarked on lots of the environment, flowers on the main street and so on and so on. So there's been a lot of improvement since the colliery closed, but we're never satisfied. We will keep moving on, because at the end of the day, nothing's more important than containing your community and ensuring that sustainability is the key issue, and that's what all of us are working together for. My dream, it would be to see the continuation of improvement within the community. I'd love to see people happy. I'd like to see the community spirit that was engendered within this community when the colliery was here to once again surface, because it's sorely missed. We still have a community, it's still not like it was, but I think my dream would be to try to get back to where we were before.